Biff, what do you call discounted sushi?
Great. So now you're gonna freaking incorporate my culture into your jokes. Great. Okay. Yeah. What do you call a discounted sushi, Jacques?
A raw deal. Here's one really for me. Why did Batman cross the road?
Why did Batman cross the road, Jacques?
Tune in tomorrow at the same bat time, same bat place to find out. Hello, Biff. How are you?
Yeah, I was better before those jokes, but sure. Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you.
So last week, we posted our favorite bass players and drummers, and it was so much fun doing that. Literally, it was so much fun prepping for it and thinking about it. And this week coming up, or next week, we're doing guitarists and singers. I also, did a little homework for keyboard players and triangle players if we want to get in there. Spoiler alert, Grimly.
I think, yeah, I think that we need to consider keyboard players, but what's going to be the next slot? So I think we have to think about that a little bit. So maybe that's going to be part of our discussion in the future. But yeah, I think we definitely need to do keyboards. But what else? Is it going to be all other instruments that are not the ones that we named earlier? Or I've seen ones where they consider like rhythm guitarist as a different category. And then there's also just the idea of just saying best musical group or entity, right? Because we didn't look at it as a whole. So so I think we have options.
There's other options.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about music, the music world lost a great drummer and a rock and roll icon this week. The Rolling Stones' Charlie Watts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's funny because about 2 or 3 months ago, there was a picture that was circulating that was hysterical, that became a meme. It was, all the guys from the Rolling Stones, and it's typical Rolling Stone attire, like a lot of like loud shirts and frills and craziness. And then there's Charlie Watts, just dressed like a regular old 80-year-old guy. I mean, just the regular, beige pants and a nice sensible windbreaker, and the rest of the Rolling Stones all Rolling Stoned out.
That's kind of their inside joke, right? I mean, because I thought, I'm not a big Rolling Stones guy, so I don't know for sure, but I had this impression that Charlie Watts was the guy that was considered to be the proper dresser in the band. So that was I figured that's like their, irony kind of a thing, right? Have the one guy who is always properly dressed look like a slob kind of a thing.
So I mean, and it is, he was, when you just look at, he didn't make my list, and he obviously didn't make your list, but when you just think of the Stones, it's just crazy. We're talking 60 years now that they've been out there, just, just killing it. And again, every comedian makes a joke that when a rock and roll legend dies, it's like, right.
Yeah, Keith Richards outlives everybody, right? I mean, it's like,
so we're recording this on a Saturday instead of Friday because, are you a fan of John Mulaney?
I like John Mulaney, but I think there's a lot of, I'm not a super fan. I think he does great work, but I think there are people that I like better than John Mulaney. But I mean, yeah, I think he's fine.
Probably mine and my wife's collected favorite, at least in both our top threes. And I mean, almost all time. The guy is great. Always polished, always looks amazing. Because I know he has a routine about why he always wears a suit that is funny. But last year was a tough year for him, like a lot of people. He's a recovering alcoholic, and he went through rehab like 13 years ago for his alcoholism.
Okay.
Well, last year, it turns out he wound up in rehab because he is a serious hardcore drug user. And
that's unfortunate. Yeah.
But he always, you never knew, you know what I mean? He was always very collective. Seriously, nobody knew. He always came across like a really together, not a party or any of that stuff. It's funny because I'm just trying to think of the right way to put it. But anyways, he he went into rehab for a couple months, and now he's back out, and he has a new routine, or he's putting together a new stand-up tour, and it's called Starting Over. And he just broke the record. He's been in Boston, 21 shows in 16 days, all sold out in 11 minutes.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
And so my wife, like her best friend and her husband, the four of us were set to go. I wasn't really on board, only because I'm still not up for being in crowded places.
Just, yeah, the whole thing, right? Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
You know, even with masks on, but I lamented and I said, okay, I'll do it. And so we went a week ago, last Friday, and my wife's friend couldn't go. So it was just the three of us, which worked out for me because we were in the back row against the wall, which was perfect. And it was her friend, my wife, me, and then I got the empty seat next to me. So I felt a little better not having to be, you know, have somebody right next to me. And the show was all about his intervention. And dude, I cannot wait for it to come out. I mean, it hurt how funny and how honest it was. And, you know, 90, 85, 80, 95% the same him, but a little, I don't want to say darker, but honestly, like more soul bearing. And so it's all about his really crazy drug stories and his intervention and how the intervention was put together and all of this stuff. So that was on Friday. On Tuesday, my wife calls me and says her friend just called her and had, so her friend's husband couldn't go that Friday.
So another return trip.
So no, her friend and her husband went Saturday, the next day.
Okay.
And then on Tuesday, my wife called and said, Michelle just got her and I tickets, so I'm not going to come home. I'm going to go see John Mulaney. And I'm like, oh, so it's Michelle's third time in like 3 days.
Yeah.
And my wife's like second time in like 3 days, or you know, right. And then on Thursday, my wife calls me and she's like, Michelle's friend, you know, might have a lead on some tickets. Do you want to go tonight? I'm like, no, I'm good. She goes, well, I might go. And they ended up not being able to get tickets on Thursday. And then she called and said, if we get tickets tonight, I really, really want you to go. And I'm like, well, I got the podcast, but I'll see if Biff can move it. And then then you move it. And thank you again for that. Then she couldn't get the tickets, but we had already decided we'd do it today. And then she did get him last minute. So my wife, I didn't go though, but my wife saw.
Well, no, but good for her. Good for her.
Well, the funny thing is I said, do her and her friend need an intervention about going and seeing this guy's show about an intervention?
I'll say this. You know, listen, like, so obviously I'm not going to go see John Mulaney 3 times, or, you know what? I should stop because I've done that before. Okay. But all I'm going to say is that, you know, all of us collectively had at least, you know, kind of at a minimum, right? 18 months of not being able to do, you know, what we wanted to do. So, you know what? Get out there and enjoy the time that you missed in the 18 months previous, right? I mean, yeah, go for it.
No,
right?
I'm just teasing her. I think it's great. Like,
absolutely, 100%.
I don't like to go. Like, honestly, next year we're supposed to go see Duran one trip, and Duran one trip in London, and one trip in Ireland, separate trips, and then she's going to go to Vegas. I have no desire to go to the Vegas trip, but I've not been to Ireland and London. And it's funny because she was like, oh, if we go a couple days early, the Pixies are playing in London. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And she's like, wait, but that's your favorite band? I'm like, yeah, but I've seen him, and now I'm like, you know, it would be cool.
Was Kim back in the band? Is Kim even in the band? Right?
She's not. She's not. And the
she's
person
done, right? I mean, she's basically done. It seems like at this point, right?
Oh, 100%. I'd be surprised. Maybe she does, and I mean it. Maybe she does a show with them for the 40th. But their new bass player has been with them for the last 2 albums and 5 years.
Kind of a bummer. Right? I mean, you know, as much as I rag on you for the Pixies, you know, I mean, I kind of get them, but you know, it is too bad when she's not there. Yeah,
it isn't. And I say it is because original member and all that. However, the reason she left, and even you know, Frank Black gets it. Obviously, she's a good enough songwriter to carry another band of note. You know,
that was the thing. I actually ran into them at the what do you call baggage claim maybe 5 years back in LAX. It was actually the Deal sisters. So I don't know what they were actually doing, but I kind of saw them, and I'm not a huge fan, so I kind of left them alone, but yeah, it was kind of weird, so I guess she's doing these stuff with her sister again, right?
Yeah,
Is my guess.
And the Breeders have put out a half, like 3 or 4 really great albums that have done incredibly well. And that's the thing. It's like to come back and sing lead on one song versus having your own, it's just so it'd be great if but honestly, I don't want to say outgrew it, but yeah, she wanted to be a songwriter. He's a control guy. But anyways, that is what it is. But maybe back in the day, but I love the fact that she goes out. And if I was going to see a show a couple times, it'd be there. And it's just so funny that he picked Boston because he's from Chicago, but of all places, but Boston is a comedy hub. It really, really is. And it's not giving any of his jokes away, but it is great when he starts talking about, coming out of rehab and why he chose Boston. He goes, because I don't know if you know what the rest of the country says about Boston, but it's a place for healing, and everyone just laughs.
For healing. Well, it is a place for healing, but it's spelled with 2 E's, right?
Right. Thank you. So, Biff, I've had a busy couple of weeks since we've chatted, kind of catching up on some of the summer movie picks that we had talked about. I've
seen Jack Squad, but you know what? I will say this: I will see Black Widow, and I will see Suicide Squad. And I know Suicide Squad is something you want to talk about in a sec, but I will see those two because that's kind of a planned family viewing.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah. And then I think I'll see a few. I will definitely try to seek out Summer of Soul. I can't remember where it was on, but it's one of the streaming. I
think it's Hulu.
Okay, so basically one of the guys that I don't subscribe to right now, so I have to kind of work all that stuff. But that's the one that I was of the ones that we talked about. That's the one that I kind of care about the most. So aside from the Demon Slayer movie, the freaking anime movie, which I will see probably with my son in the next. I'm hoping next weekend during the long weekend we'll be able to catch that. So
I won't talk about Suicide Squad. I saw that. I actually went to the movie theater with my 2 little guys because I looked at the app and it was an 11 a.m. showing.
Yep.
It's like, I don't know if they would have screened the movie if we didn't show up because we were the only 3.
It's like, why are we here? Oh my God, these people showed up. We got to still run this thing. All right.
Honestly, there were when we pulled into the parking lot, it's a big 14 screen place, and my oldest guy took a picture looking from the door out to the parking lot because as I pulled in I thought I fucked up, and I'm like, oh my God, are we at the wrong theater? Because I honestly for a second thought that maybe we went to the wrong theater. So he took a picture and I double checked the app. I'm like, did I buy tickets for the theater in Lexington? And I showed up in the one in Lowell. I actually did that once a couple of years ago. I was meeting management and I went to a theater. It was only 15 minutes away and I made it in time. But I'm like, oh my God, did I screw up and go to the wrong theater? Nope, went to the right one. There's 8 cars out front. The person collecting tickets, the manager behind the manager counter, 3 kids working the snack bar, and us 3 walking in. So I told the boys, we walked in with our masks. I'm like, yeah, I think we can take our masks off for this one. But I've always loved Ryan Reynolds. We've been waiting because the boys are gamers. We've been waiting so long to see this movie. It did not disappoint. 2 thumbs up for that.
Cool. Yeah. Wait, so what was the movie?
Free Guy.
Free Guy.
Yep, okay, with Ryan Reynolds. So I seen Suicide Squad. I saw Free Guy. The missus and I, with one of our guys, watched Jungle Cruise the Jungle Cruise.
I like the ride,
dude. Do you have a favorite? You're not a park guy, but if you did have favorite ride, would that rank near the top?
Yeah, it is one of the ones that I like, and for a very different reason than everything else, right? Because it's that weird ride where whoever is running it actually has a certain level of free reign, right? So the guy who is essentially guiding you through will say some crazy ass stuff, and that is part of what it's like being on a Southwest flight, right? It's really that. So the ride itself is crappy, except for the fact that they always happen to have some dude that just knows what he's doing.
So it's or gal, and they have a script that's if you see
Right.
it, it's about 60 to 70% the same, but
Yeah,
they have their own spin on it.
Right. They have that discretion that to do whatever the heck, and that's really why it makes it good.
And I've been on some rides that were amazing. And I've seen some rides that were really good. I've never had a Jungle Cruise that wasn't awesome. And the funny thing is, it's not a popular ride. They've repurposed an old ride. First of all, kudos to them to take an out of date, antiquated ride from the 50s, not have to change the structure of it, not have to build a new wraparound, but absolutely make it hysterical. And the wife, I was just going to say,
that's the genius of it.
She loves puns and campiness.
Right.
And you may or may not have noticed by the start of every show, I like bad jokes.
Well, no, you only have bad jokes. There's a difference. But.
So when the wife and I sat down, again, if we're watching a Transformer movie, if you're watching King Kong versus Godzilla, okay, we know we're not going in to see Citizen Kane, but let's just hope that this and the only thing that we cared about is, are they going to have those same jokes and B, those same style of jokes? It delivered. I won't say anything else, but it delivered on the jokes.
Listen, I'll say one thing about the entirety of the Disney entertainment offering. They really know what they're doing, right? I mean, you can criticize their kind of the cheesiness or predictability or whatever, but I mean, they kind of get the idea of delivering what the people want, right? I mean, and this one, it's kind of amazing because like up until about maybe 95, there was a period between maybe 1978 and 1995 where Disney was kind of garbage, right? And then suddenly so maybe that's something that's worth looking at, but something happened like in the mid 90s, maybe even earlier than that, because Little Mermaid might have been the trigger. I don't know, even know, but it started to change where suddenly, oh my God, these guys kind of know what they're doing again, kind of a thing, right?
And they found their footing, and it's like, I mean, I'm so torn with Disney, and we've talked about it before. I put them in the same category as the NFL, that I wish I knew how to quit them. Awful company, treat people like shit, screw over talent, like that whole thing with Scarlett Johansson. On the other hand, well, they now own Star Wars, they now own Marvel, they now these movies that I love, the theme parks that I love. I wish I didn't love Disney as much, but it was great.
And essentially Disney owning ESPN also creates a bit of a disruption also, right? So
and so now and the TV side of things, it took us a little bit, but we're caught up on Cobra Kai, the end of season 3, and I had hopes for it, and it ended exactly like I had called, and there is going to be a season 4. Dude, Karate Kid 2, they went to Hawaii, but in the movie they went to Okinawa. Right.
Yeah.
And so what we love about the show, it's not just the main 2 guys who they brought back. Dude, they did an episode, they did an arc. They did like a 2-episode, 3-episode arc where Daniel has to go to Okinawa because he lost the contract with his Japanese car dealership.
Right.
And he goes to Japan. He goes to Japan. I think he went to like Tokyo, he went to car company in Japan, and it didn't go well. And while he was there, he was like kind of homesick for Mr. Miyagi and reminiscent. So he goes back to Okinawa. And dude, they went back and they got the actors from that. And some of them were a couple actors who, have gone on to have other careers, but they went and got bit actors who, like this little girl who was stuck on a telephone pole that he read. They went and found that actress 35 years later. And we loved that so much. Like the fact that they did that, talk about knowing your audience.
I guess what I would say is this, like, I thought they got back Talon Tomita for that, for the main, the female protagonist role too, right? They brought her back. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, the girl from the original one,
right? The original part 2.
Yep. They got her. And dude,
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
wife and I are looking at her and we're like, oh my God, she's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like, she looks like she aged 10 years, not like 35. It was fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I actually follow her on Twitter. So I thought I saw her post about the Cobra Kai stuff, kind of relatively recently. So yeah, Okinawa is its own kind of weird thing about Japan because, like what I tell some people is that you should not consider Okinawa necessarily as Japan because they were, just like Hawaii is kind of a different animal than the rest of the United States. Okinawa, because it was its own country and it was its own empire, there's a lot of parallels to that and they have their own language and culture, just like Hawaii. It is kind of an outlier place. So Okinawa is kind of a very special place in many ways. So, but it's cool,
So we loved it. Have you caught up on anything? So you haven't seen anything.
I haven't seen anything because, well, I started watching stupid things, and I also got interrupted by the IIHF women. So we'll talk about that later a little bit. And then there's a few other things that I got caught up on, which I'll also talk about what we're watching in the streaming section. But yeah, but I'm a little bit behind on a lot of things. But once the IIHF is over, I do plan to go in and finish up Loki before the hockey season starts. So that's my target.
I rewatched it and I've been watching these spoiler alerts you might have missed type thing, dude. How genius their attention to tiny details are. And it's funny, like without talking anything about the show itself, but they'll be walking down a hallway and you'll see something in the background. It will say like, building LW221. And it's like, oh, in episode 221 of the Thor comic was the first time that this entity or this thing was mentioned, like in the 60s. Yeah. All that stuff.
Listen, so as you know, I'm not a guy in that hobby, but I think the one thing that I do appreciate though is that the people who are kind of handing the reins of these products are smart enough to know that it does really, really well when the custodians of these products are actually fans of the products, right? I mean, and I almost want to say that it really started I don't think it started with this, but where it was the most noticeable for me was the Star Trek reboot, where I'm thinking, you know what? I mean, this guy is clearly a guy that watched the original series and loved the original series. And because there were a lot of, whether it be, Shatner, not Shatner, Kirk, kind of, doing it with the green alien or whatever the case may be. It's like there's these little things throughout that I'm sure I haven't caught, maybe 80% of, where this guy gets it because so it's kind of almost maybe the guy who started that approach is really a guy like Quentin Tarantino, where he was very overt about his homages to his influences, right? So,
well, it's funny you say that because I didn't have it on the list, but I'll mention it real quick. So I love that Jon Favreau loves Star Wars so much, and what he's done with The Mandalorian is unbelievable. Like the first live action TV show, the guy who co-produces it and co-created it with him, Dave Filoni, was brought in early. Like, he was part of the Clone Wars before the Clone Wars started. I don't think he's a creator on that, but he was like showrunner on that. He created Star Wars Rebels. They love what they're doing so much. And what I love the behind the scenes stuff. And in the most recent behind the scenes of Mandalorian season 2, there was an 8-episode thing for season 1. They've posted 2 for season 2, and the second one was all about Mark Hamill being the surprise, guest,
right,
and how they kept it a secret. I want to, when you just said something that really made me think of this. So a couple years ago, when I was visiting you, and the boys and I came out to LA, and when I saw the Millennium Falcon, and my wife put it online, and I tell this story again, and I know I've told on podcast before. I was unaware of how much tears were streaming down the side of my face when I saw the Millennium Falcon. I mean, I was 8 years old and just staring up at this thing. Never in my life did I actually think I was going to see the Falcon when we went to Disney for the first time to see it. And it's funny because I remember my wife saying to the boys, it's like, okay, give Papa a minute. And I'm like, why is she? And I go to talk and I can't. And that's when I realized, that's when I kind of came out of my phase and realized that I'm just, tears are streaming down the side of my face. And we had a laugh about it. My wife thought it was so sweet, but the first time I saw the Falcon when I went to Disney, a few years ago, it was absolutely, I wasn't expecting that. And so I'm watching. So back to it in 3, 2. So I'm watching and they're talking and Favreau is telling his side of the story and Filoni is telling his side of the story about how they had this whole deception in the script that they were saying it was another Jedi named Plo Koon, who's Dave Filoni's favorite Jedi. And they decided, oh, we're going to put him in the script, that he's the guy who's going to come and get Grey Goo, because fans of his, Star Wars fans know everything about the creators.
So Grey Goo, just so for the most of us aren't paying attention, that's Baby Yoda.
Okay. Yeah. And so and that way, in case the script gets out or leaks, people will be like, oh, right, of course, that's Dave Filoni's favorite Jedi. Of course, it's going to there was people who even that day on set had no idea that Mark Hamill was showing up. So when they were talking about in the planning stage, that's when Dave Filoni says to John Favreau, if we are going with Luke, that gives us a reason to introduce R2-D2. And John Favreau was like, fuck, what? He goes, yeah, they're a team. And it's like, that was always John Favreau's favorite character, was R2-D2. So I'm watching John Favreau talk. He goes, he wrote the script. He planned it. He was with the director every day planning it. The first time during rehearsals, when the elevator door opens and out comes Luke Skywalker and behind him, the remote R2-D2, John Favreau says, it was about 30 seconds later that I'm just standing there and realize I have tears just streaming down the side of my face. So what you said, and it's funny because John Favreau says just what you said, the people who are taking care of this, they understand how important these things are to people like me. My sons love it, who are 11 and 14. My wife loves it. I love it. A guy in his mid-50s. And how, not just how much we love it, but how important it is to us. And the fact that you see how important it is to him, dude, that made me feel really like I am. I'd rather somebody smarter working on the show like him than me doing it. But yeah, when I saw him talking about when he teared up, didn't get emotional, but actually had Niagara Falls falling from his face. And I'm like, I literally loved that he shared that story. So when you said these guys and women who are taking over these projects, who understand that they're not just making a movie, but
I think it is one of those things where it's that the episodes, the most recent 3 episodes, right? 7, 8, 9s, right? Is that what that is? Yeah, right. Yep. Those, I think I understand the criticism of these longtime fans have about that, because they had their own expectation of what those movies should be. But I'm kind of a casual guy when it comes to Star Wars. I also grew up in the Star Wars area, and I also 100% understand the context of Star Wars being this, there is like a difference between, living in the pre-Star Wars days and the post-Star. There was this thing that changed because nothing like that existed, and suddenly, oh my God, it's there. And so, obviously, you and I were lucky enough to have been able to experience that, whether it be Star Wars, maybe Jurassic Park is similar, whatever the case may be. But I think that no matter what you criticize about what the direction they try to take it, I really, really appreciated the amount of fandom that they brought to creating those 3 episodes. And also, like I said, it also holds true for the Star Trek reboots, right? It's like, oh my God, these guys freaking get it, right?
No,
So I think that's important.
So changing gears into the unfun side of life these days, Afghanistan has been the clusterfuck that we all knew it was going to be.
Yeah. I mean, so it's like one of those deals where, and I have no idea, I'm not really studied enough and smart enough to figure out what's what, but like ultimately at the end of it, it looks like a bad divorce that's kind of handled poorly, where one of the partners say, hey, you know what, I'm done with this, I'm moving out on this day, and then I'm going to go with my new partner over here and have a nice day, right? And at the meantime, the guy knows full well that the spouse that he's leaving has a stalker ex-partner that might be essentially gonna move in and essentially create this hostile situation, not just for your ex-spouse, but for the kids that you decide that you're gonna leave behind, right? So I don't think I will say one thing, right? I think it's generally I agree with the idea that the US needs to be out of that business, right? But it's one of those situations where, was the execution of the exit perfect? Definitely not. But then how much better would it have been? So there's a lot of that stuff that I don't know that I can speak to, right? But yeah, it just all I can say is that I hope that the people who helped us the last 20 years, that are now, because by virtue of helping us, are now targets of the Taliban, I hope we could get them out. And definitely anybody who is on who don't want to be there, who are not Afghanistan nationals, that are in there for a variety of circumstances, I hope that we can get them all out, right? So, but
that's the thing. It's like, no matter when we left, it was going to be an awful clusterfuck.
Yeah, that's clearly the case. Right?
And after 20 years, if their government and their military wasn't ready to stand on their own feet, what was staying another 6 months? What was staying another year going to do?
Right.
What?
I think that aspect of it is that aspect. I think the only aspect that I wish things were coordinated better was that there was a period. I don't, and like I said, I'm not smart enough to know what the circumstances are, but I wish there was a period where they could establish that, hey, all of you who want to get out of Afghanistan, that are not natives of Afghanistan, that need to get out, we're going to be getting out at this point. Come to us now so that we could get you out now, or within a certain timeline, to ensure your safe passage out, right?
No,
right. That's the only thing, right?
Aside that's the biggest thing for me. Yeah. Right. The biggest thing for me too is like all the people who helped us, we knew they were dead people walking as soon as we were gone. And whether, if we started to get the people out 6 months ago, it would have triggered the Taliban to, hey, they're evacuating these people. And then the Taliban starts their shit up again. And then now we're stuck because it's like, oh, well, now we have to stay and fight again, versus that.
You know what? But I think that I would have been fine with that, right? Because that's reacting to a change in circumstance, right? It's you make the case that, what, we are going through our formal, proper withdrawal, and part of the withdrawal is that we're going to get the people out that need to get out, right? So that's just part of the withdrawal plan. So if the withdrawal plan, gets a hitch because the other side is not behaving the way we expect them to, I would have been 100% okay with them saying, you know what, don't mess with us. We're stepping in right now to intervene with your blocking our process, right? So I would have been fine with that. I think that's, yeah.
I agree. And I blame Biden for this not being smooth. The last guy, Obama, Bush. Honestly, this has been a 20-year debacle. And the fact that, I'm not going to go down the wormhole, but, we didn't learn from the mistakes that Russia made trying to occupy it. And Russia didn't learn from the mistakes that the French made before them. I mean, this is a place because of the region, because of the landscape. And again, you can't change, fanaticism and whatever. And it's sad that for the last 20 years, women have been able to get jobs and go to school. And it's very heartbreaking. But at the end of the day, we can't run every other country. We can barely run ours. And I hate the politicizing. It's the same people who a year ago at this time were applauding the last guy for announcing he was moving out. And the last guy who made a 3-month ceasefire in exchange for releasing 500 of the Taliban's most hardened soldiers, one of which is now leading that country. It's just a cluster. But I saw that you put on here WCK, the World Central Kitchen. What was that?
Central Kitchen. So I put that in because I just wanted to, one of the things is that we have a lot of often that's going on, but what World Central Kitchen is a charity that I've been giving to for a little while now. And the only reason I know about it is because it's run by one of these celebrity chefs who happens to be this Spanish guy. I went to one of his restaurants in DC way back when I had a project there. And I don't know if he has places, I imagine I'm sure he has restaurants all over the place, right? Because that's what celebrity chefs do. But this guy has this thing where he goes into these disaster areas with a crew that essentially knows how to just get people fed, right? And so it was a huge organization when Maria hit Puerto Rico, and certainly they've been really active in the southeast when we had our recent hurricanes, and now they're in places like Haiti, and now they're also doing Afghanistan, and where one of the things that they're doing, and because I know that they have several restaurants in the DC area. Now they're providing food for incoming Afghan refugees as they arrive at Dulles International. And the great thing about that, or the thing that's kind of really made me think about this particular one, was that they talked about how they fed families of Afghans who hadn't eaten in like 30 hours because they got their green light to essentially leave the country, but they were essentially stuck in a hangar, whether it be, maybe they were in Afghanistan, maybe they were in like another, let's say Qatar or something like that, right? But it's a long obviously it's a long transport from that area back to the US. And then it's also a secondary thing of, first you have to get them out of Afghanistan, and then they have to kind of get them out of wherever they end up sending them. So they're literally feeding Afghan families coming into the DC area. So that's the most recent thing. But I just wanted to kind of mention, it's a great organization helping the people who are in the most need. And this is not, this just it has nothing to do with politics or anything. They're just looking at, oh my God, horrible things are happening here. We're gonna go there and try to feed them. I mean, that's their thing. So
that's great. That's great. Good. Because I saw that on the rundown, and I was going to look that up, and I will look it up more after. No, that's fantastic. There are good people out there who don't care about the politics and bullshit. Here's hungry people who need to get fed.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Right.
I don't know how bad of an idea this was, but about 2 weeks ago now, I think I got a spam email or something from Donnie Three Scoops, office, one of those looking for donations. And I signed up for his mailing list. Dude, I get 2 or 3 emails a day from that guy's, from the desk of the 45th president type thing. Dude, every email is just a grifting, and we all know it. But when I sit there and I get these emails, I'm like,
whoa, wait, you're just so categorical. Like, you're really saying that we all know it? Do we really all know it?
That's the sad thing, and it's so blatant, but just each and every one, but just from him. And I know his son has an email list and all these people, but 2 or 3 emails a day asking for money. It's just so insane that there's still enough people out there who haven't seen this for what it is, that politics and all this stuff doesn't give a fuck.
You're kidding, right?
Just
you're
about
kidding, right?
money.
I mean, like all these televangelists,
right?
That tell you to put your freaking hand on the TV so that you could be healed of the evils that are ailing you, right? I mean, how long has this been going? I mean, obviously it's been going on my entire life, and they are still making money off of it. So yeah, come on. I mean,
it
listen,
is.
they are what they are, and they're the same as those guys that are putting their hands up on the TV screen and saying that and they're declaring that they're healing you, and then give us your credit card number, and we'll charge you a monthly fee, and yeah, whatever. Yeah, sure.
It is sad. So it's been a bad idea, but I do
listen. It is a free country. If you want to spend your money on that stuff,
God bless
there are
you.
people who spend money on astrology readings and whatever. I mean, that if that's what you want to do, it's a free country.
So what's the COVID update these days in Japan and Los Angeles and elsewhere?
Los Angeles is, so Los Angeles is actually not horrible, and from the standpoint of, I think probably the person we should have probably asked is Renette, but from all indications, we don't have the hospital overruns that's being seen in other parts of the country. We are back to, for a little period, a brief period, we had this thing where if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask at a supermarket, and now they're saying everybody wear masks, and it's one of those deals where, yeah, I don't care. I mean, I don't have problems with masks. I don't care. Japan is an interesting one. So the thing with Japan is that they had an awesome start, but I think by and large, the government failed the management of it. So the people kind of kept it from being an absolute catastrophe because, and part of it is because culturally, right? They kind of benefited from the fact that, hey, they freaking wear masks all the time anyway. Oh, you're telling us to wear masks? Yeah, whatever. We do that all the time. It wasn't a big deal. But I think we're at the point now where, just to give you an idea of, I was in that, not the very last group to qualify, but I was the not super young guy to qualify group, right? So I got my first vax. Well, I got a single dose Johnson & Johnson, so I got mine in April, right? Japan right now is starting with the people who are, like, say, under 30 years old. So we're talking almost a 5-month delay between US and Japan in terms of when they're delivering the vaccine. So in that sense, they're kind of where we were, like, at the beginning of the year, where, and hey, they just had the Olympics. I don't know if you know it, but probably a kind of a super spreader event. Maybe maybe it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it was what it was. So they do have a lot of stuff open. So it's kind of, I think Japan is where we were at maybe in February, and we'll see how they go in terms of one thing that they do have. So they have a population that is eager to get vaccinated. So they have that going for them. What they don't have going for them is the ability for a place like the US to create these sites where a large number of people can be vaccinated in a short amount of time. They don't have that. So I think it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle there. So we'll see.
It's in here, Massachusetts, they just announced it. The boys go back to school on Tuesday, that masks are going to be mandatory in school for most colleges have already said, yeah, you have to be fully vaccinated and proof of vaccination. In the schools here, they're going to be fully masks at least till October, and then they're going to reassess, which, look, I'm quite sure October's going to roll around. They're going to be like, we're going to keep them on through November. You know what I mean? Because there's just going to be outbreaks and stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah. And just the other day, when we went to John Mulaney a week ago, Friday, you didn't have to wear a mask, but the wife and I and our friend did. And I'm going to say about 15-20% of the crowd did. By a week later, when she went back this past Friday, you did have to have masks. Yeah. So indoor masks and stuff like that. And look, I didn't mind. It was not the end of the world. It was 2 hours of sitting there with it. We don't drink, so we weren't taking the masks off and on and stuff like that. It was fine. I have a friend who lives in Taiwan, and they had, for a year, they were pretty much COVID free. They were really great. Then they had a bad outbreak, and the government turned around and said, you know what? F this. We're going back to the restrictions we had. And I was just reading an article that I sent him, and we talked the other day on Zoom, and he's like, yeah, they relax things it got out of hand. They start letting tourists come and all this stuff, and then they're like, yeah, we got to go back to quarantining when you get here. And they had like a whole week with no new reported cases. So
okay, so I think the deal with Taiwan really is that you know they're doing I think there's like maybe half a dozen ish countries where the people are probably pretty happy with what the government has done to curtail this, right? Like Taiwan is one of them. I think like maybe South Korea, New Zealand, Australia, whatever the number is, right? A small number where I think the government's done a good job of essentially locking this down. And Taiwan definitely, but they have two things kind of going for them that is not the same as the US, right? Number one is that they are a small island country, so they have an easier time controlling the incoming traffic, right? And when I say, and I'm not talking about, oh my God, there are illegals coming over the border. That's not the thing. The bottom line is that the US has how many international airports that are operating internationally, right? And that's the thing, right? Taiwan, I don't know if they have another airport aside from Taipei where international flights are coming in. So managing that external incoming traffic is a different animal than just think of all of the major cities in this country. Anything that's like, I mean, even Chicago is an international airport, right? So just think of all the international airport in this country, managing all those incoming people and managing Taiwan's one international airport is one animal. And then the second thing is that the people are generally on the same understanding of what this thing is. They don't have the debates that we have in this country, or at least not to the extent that we have in this country. So they have a kind of a uniformity in belief. So I think that's where they are able to say, you know what, we all believe we need to do this. We all believe that this is the problem, and we all believe that this will, take care of the issue. We just have to kind of do this for this period of time, and there's no real debate there. So yeah.
So it's still here, hasn't gone away. Hey,
what's
happening? What's happening?
It
with
hasn't
the recall?
gone away. What?
What's
We've
happening
been doing it for 2 years?
Yeah, dude, that's a fucked up thing. When I sent you guys the update the other day about my meager progress on my program, I'm actually doing fine on my program. I'm actually very happy, but I got a long way to go. So it's one of those things where, but when I'm like, yeah, this is my goal.
I'm not gonna try to do anything to improve myself for Phoenix. I'm gonna go the way I am.
But I'm like, yeah, but you play on a regular basis, so I don't have that. Anyways, but when I started saying, yeah, I'm for Phoenix, I'm thinking, oh my God, is there any way this is still going to be bothering us in, like what, 9 months from now? But nobody thought that this was going to be a 2-year thing. Nobody thought that this year, it's like we're 2 months out, but it's like, who knows if they're going to have Halloween this year here. Anyways, that's depressing. How is what's happening with the recall in California? What are you hearing?
I don't know, because like, I think it's one of those, as far as I can tell, it just seems like it's unpredictable what's going to happen, because there, on the one hand, I think there's a certain level of, it's a combination of apathy among the people who want to keep Newsom in his, office, against the really motivated people who want Newsom out, right? So I think there is a stark, it has the kind of the compounding effect where, yeah, so if enough people are apathetic to not bother with this recall, at the same time, there's enough people who really want the recall and want to replace him, then I think there's going to be some craziness that happens. So yeah, I mean, I have no idea what to think. I really don't.
So you got true voters in your house. Have you gotten your forms yet?
We've gotten our forms, but I'm trying to get them to, please look, if you decide to disagree with me, fine, but please send in a vote. I don't care if you don't agree with me, but please send in a vote, just so that, you're, contributing to the process. So we'll see.
So yeah, and all I can do is look on and say, hey, please do the right thing. Okay. Biff, you had a couple crime clips from Japan this week that looked interesting, but I couldn't tell what was going on with either one.
So the first one, which had this really poorly done, they basically photoshopped the dude's head onto a cartoon body, right?
It was hysterical.
Right.
Hysterical.
So this one was like freaking amazing. So I'm going to kind of set it up, and I want you to kind of think about what you expect to happen based on the circumstance. Okay. So this 70-ish lady receives a call, essentially indicating that there is some issues with her receiving her national benefits, like kind of like Social Security benefits. And so she needs to check in with a bank to make sure that her bank card and her bank account is up to date to the most modern version, so that she could keep continuing to get her checks, right? So this lady, being kind of smart, says that, you know what, I'm going to call the bank just to make sure. So she calls the bank, but she doesn't reach the bank, so she leaves a message on their answering machine. In the meantime, this guy who says that he'll update her to the newest stuff, he just needs, her old card and her, access information, this dude has arranged to meet her to essentially do the exchange, right? And so that's thinking, oh my God, this lady wasn't patient enough to wait for the bank guy, blah, blah, blah. So what do you think? So she goes off to see this guy that she, that this scam artist that is essentially going to have arranged to receive her old no good, bank card, right? And she's about to meet him to exchange that to him. What would you expect to happen next?
That the old lady would have been taking advantage of the guy because she's 70.
That's the classic thing, right?
And that the guy shows up and takes her card. Oh, I left your new card at the office. I'll be right back. Yeah. Wait here. Yeah.
Whatever, right? It turns out that like the bank people got the message, tried to call her back. She didn't answer. So they went out looking for her and found her during the exchange. So that's the little goofy cartoon that you saw where the bank people said, hey, that guy doesn't work for our bank. And basically intercepted him from essentially stealing her card.
Yeah, because it was such a I don't even know what to call that kind of animation that they use.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah.
But then they had because
it's a project for an intern,
right? But dude, the photoshopping his head on like the
it's like goofy cartoon bodies of like 4 people, except one of the people is the dude. So the dude's face is like doing this little tilting thing, right? Tilting animation effects. Yeah, it's awesome. It's
dude, it was so. And now what? The other one you said it was kind of more serious about the Yakuza.
So this is what just a quick synopsis in the in the Kyushu area, which is kind of in the the southern part of Japan, southwestern part of Japan. There is a notorious organization, and what's interesting about this, well, whatever. The thing with Yakuza is that there is a certain code that people expect out of these organizations, which is that they will hustle money from regular citizens, right? That's what they do, right? They do these illegal things against citizens, right? But what they don't do is that they don't condone violence against regular citizens, right? Violence within the Yakuza world is supposed to be strictly Yakuza to Yakuza. So it's kind of this weird thing where I've seen like US politicians talk about, well, if the gangs are killing each other, we should let them. It's like, that's kind of the way Japan is, right? They say, oh yeah, if the gangs are gonna kill each other, that's what they're gonna do, right? But so this particular one is one that it's been controversial. What am I saying? Yakuza is controversial, whatever. But it's controversial in that they are more willing to engage regular citizens in their violent acts. So what happened was that this Yakuza's top guy and his right-hand guy was on trial for several instances of a combination of murder and assault. And the top guy got a capital sentence, so he's going to be executed. And then the right-hand man got life without parole, right? And so there's a couple of things. So there's the whole idea of the Japanese are kind of, allowing Yakuza to essentially mess with other Yakuza people as long as they're not involving regular people in as victims of violence. So there's this kind of this understood idea that law enforcement and the judicial system is gonna kind of let that stuff slide, but these dudes, they mess with regular citizens and they're gonna pay for it. So there's that whole idea. And then the secondary thing is that the number one guy at the end of the sentencing declares that, I asked for a fair trial, I asked for whatever, and this is, there's nothing about this that's fair. This is just a strict judgment, and if I were you, I would say that you would regret this decision that you made, kind of stuff. And then the guy who is second in command goes, well, you know what? This is absolute garbage. You should consider yourself lucky that you're being transferred out of Kyushu and off to Tokyo. So, like, immediately, most of us thought these dudes are literally threatening the judge after their sentencing, right? And I'm thinking, does that happen? Is that what happens in mafia trials in this country? I'm not sure, but I'm thinking, that's some crazy shit.
Well, so the car, at one point, the car pulls in and there's dozens and dozens of Japanese businessmen, all in like black suits.
Well, they're
brown. Who are those people as that guy pulled in?
Yeah, so there's the organization, right? So there's the people who are there to kind of support the organization. So they are the whatever. I don't know the details of who they are, but they're with that organization, right? They're just there as essentially they're obliged to support, these appearances, kind of a thing, right?
And there was dozens and dozens, and then the guys get out of the car, and of course the mafiosa, like white track suits. Everybody else is in these business suits.
He's got that classic, right? He looks like you think that's a dude that lives in Florida with a gold chains, right? That's what he looks like.
Right? 100%. No, those were interesting clips.
Crazy stuff.
So moving on to sports, I'll give the quick update. I'm still moving ahead, trying to acquire the single A collegiate baseball team, the Pittsfield Suns. Had a great talk with the owner, the current owner, this past week, and it's one of those things. They own a bunch of AA teams and a couple AAA teams, and they just don't have the time for this.
Yeah.
It's too small potatoes for them, but he really feels connected to the team, which, he worked for them like in high school and stuff like that. And it is, he feels like a special thing, birthplace of baseball and all that. So that's my only sports update. But you got a lot going on, like between watching the hockey.
Obviously we're in August now, in the height of hockey season. So, but because of some of the garbage decisions made by the IIHF and all this other stuff, the women's international tournament that should have occurred a few months ago is occurring right now in Calgary. And so this past Thursday, I think it was Thursday, I witnessed a shocking loss by the Americans to the Canadian team, 5-1. And it was, the context of it is that we expect Canada and US to always be playing for the gold medal, kind of a thing. And this is only prelims. They're not playing for the championship. It's fine. But there was a lot of expectation about the US continuing their dominance. They had won like 12 straight of these international plus Olympic tournaments versus Canada. So it's just been a massive streak. And to top it all off, during the prelims in an earlier game, Canada's best player, a woman named Marie-Philippe Poulin, was injured. So their best player wasn't even in this game. And then Canada basically got up 5-0, after the second period, and US managed the one goal, but that's what it was. But it was kind of a shocking loss. So we'll see, hopefully they recover. So I have this weird allegiance when it comes to international hockey, where when I talk about the men's international team, I root for the Canadians, but when it comes to the women's, I root for the Americans, which is and I won't go into. There is a very valid, well, not valid, I have a justification for it, but that's kind of where that is. But US has arguably the better offensive punch, but one of the things that I do question is that I've never been a huge fan of their starting goalie, and so and it's a woman named Alex Cavallini. And I thought that I was shocked that they didn't give a player named Aaron Frankel to try, because Aaron Frankel was the best collegiate goalie this past year. She won the Patty Kazmaier Award, which is the Women's Hobie Baker Award. And I thought this was a time to kind of switch over, but so we'll see if and I'm really curious to see if the Americans do change their goaltending, even for the long run. We'll see what happens. But so I think that's one thing that I have. So yeah. So we'll see how it goes. We have another week of it. So
And Lundqvist retired last week.
Lundqvist, yeah, it's really unfortunate. I've never been a huge Lundqvist fan, but obviously to some degree, I think in general, I mean, hockey fans root for those long time guys who've never won the cup, right? So in our age, maybe it's somebody like, say, Dale Harachuk, or whoever it may be, right? But there's all these great guys that have never won the cup, and Lundqvist was from say 2008 to 2020. If you look at the entire period of time, Lundqvist was probably the best goalie in that time period. So to some degree, he's one of those guys that have earned that right for the fans to want to hand the cup over to them, right? We've seen a lot of that, whether it be Ray Bork or Dave Andrechuk, right, or Rod Brindamore, those guys who have told for years and years and in whatever circumstances. Lanny McDonald's a classic one, right?
Right.
At the end of their careers, they get to hoist the cup. You wanted that for a guy like Lundqvist. So, that's unfortunate, and it was a weird thing where he had some kind of a coronary condition that I guess it's just at a point where he can't really recover from that. So it's really too bad. But I think that, in this area, a surefire Hall of Famer, probably a first ballot Hall of Famer, and, probably the best goalie of that particular, say, a dozen-year stretch.
Neither one of us, I don't think, have any video game things this week. So
heck no.
So what are you doing streaming wise?
I watched a few things of. So there was a guy named Sean Locke, and you might know him because you're a comedy guy, but I did not know who this guy was. But it's one of those deals where things kind of fit, came up on my feeds, and this British comic Sean Locke, all this, people are kind of paying tributes to him. So I said, oh, I should see if I even know this guy. And I kind of recognize him, but he was a regular on this show called 8 out of 10 Cats. And I don't know if you know anything about this show or, Sean Locke, but I will just say this. I think it would be best if I just don't give anything away, but please look up 8 out of 10 Cats, and please look up Sean Locke, and then please look up Carrot in the Box, because, oh my God, it is just a kind of a different. It is one of those things where you see a guy that does something that is, it's you just don't see elsewhere, right? So I'm sorry that I didn't know who this guy was until he died this about 8 days ago or whatever it was. But yeah, so that's what I've been watching.
We are finally caught up on Ted Lasso. Gosh, I love that show. And we finished season 1 of Kevin Can Go Fuck Himself. It's been renewed for season 2.
Yeah.
The creator, upon getting the green light for season 2, said, he's so delighted to be stuck in Worcester for another year with, but yeah.
So I'll be honest with you. I tried to watch it and I didn't really enjoy it. And I think it's the same problem that I had with Seinfeld. Where I think that there is a lot of this regionalized stuff that and it's one of those things where I'm in maybe the worst place possible, where I said, yeah, I get where you're going with it, but I don't care. And I think that's where I think and it was kind of cool because obviously that I spent a little bit of time in Worcester, so I know a little bit about the geography there. But it is one of those things where I 100% get why this is something that is probably great. And I 100% get why I don't really enjoy it in the same way that I didn't really enjoy Seinfeld that much.
No, I get that. I just, the stylistic thing of the way it goes from a cheesy middle America
I think the premise is really the premise is awesome,
dark,
right?
dark thing.
Yeah.
You got any parenting tips this week?
The only thing I'll say is that my son is in his first job hunt. So when your kid is trying to make their own money, my parenting tip is do whatever the heck you need to get them in a new job. So
what a time to be looking for a job. My parenting tip, it's the last week of summer vacation, and I've basically given the boys, you guys don't have to do shit this week. If you guys don't want, I mean, because we prepaid for a couple
unlimited
classes.
Xbox.
Yeah, no, I'm like, you know what? Just enjoy, and some, and I'm just tearing a page from Risky Business. Sometimes you just have to say, what the fuck?
Yeah. Well,
and I'm just letting them, within range. I mean, it's like, yeah, but if they want extra snacks, they want to stay up late and do this. It's like, yeah, because come Sunday, class doesn't start till Tuesday, but I'm like, yeah, we're going to get in the habit a couple days before because, I have the option. The bus is like 5 houses away, but the school's only 10 minutes away. And I really don't mind driving them back and forth. But either way, we're going to have to leave the house at like 7:45 to make the bus, or like 8:15 to, if I'm going to drive them. But it's going to take a couple of days to get ready. So honestly, my parenting tips is just sometimes let them be, 11 and 13 and enjoy the last hurrahs of the summer
100%.
Vacation.
Yeah, 100% true. Yeah. Yep.
Well, Biff, I'm looking forward to recording our singers and guitar players episode.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of crossovers, right? We're going to have such a similar list. We don't even have to argue about it.
Nope.
I'm 100% sure. 100%.
I think we're just going with all the past, present, and future guitarists from Baby Metal are going to be on your list, and I'm just going to agree.
It's not. Have you noticed that I've had a very
surprisingly, yeah, surprising. Okay, this was great, and I'll talk to you next week.
And don't forget.
Mindless mass has got the season's trends. I'm tired of apologizing, trying to make amends. I colored all the pages, so I know how this book ends. Take that much to get a match for God, so just a plastic sales pitch from now to got a clue, making money off one.